Welcome to the second lesson of our digital literacy course.
Specifically, we're going to be looking at operating systems and file management.
Right.
And should be especially useful if you're one of those freshmen taking a digital literacy course right now.
Absolutely.
We're going to be going through some textbook excerpts that you guys shared with us and pulling out the really need-to-know information.
The key insights.
Yeah, kind of like a cheat sheet for you guys.
That's right. We'll break down all the jargon and the technical stuff, highlight the important points, and maybe even, point out a few things that your textbook might have left out.
Definitely. Okay, so let's start with the foundation, the bedrock of all of this. Operating systems.
Okay.
To be honest with you, they've always seemed kind of mysterious to me, like this invisible force that's kind of running the show behind the scenes.
Yeah, it's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Operating systems, or OS for short, are like the masterminds behind your computer. They manage all the resources, keep everything running smoothly, and essentially act as a bridge between you, the user, and the hardware.
So the OS is doing all the heavy lifting while we just get to enjoy the show.
Exactly. That's a great way to think about it.
Okay.
When you're typing up a paper or you're browsing the web, you're not thinking about all the complex processes that are happening in the background.
Right.
The OS is taking care of all of that, making sure your keystrokes turn into letters on the screen.
Right.
Or that your internet connection is stable.
So is it kind of like the OS is the conductor of an orchestra?
Yes.
Making sure that all the instruments are playing together nicely?
Yeah, I like that analogy.
Yeah.
Now, just like there are different types of orchestras, there are different types of operating system.
Okay.
Each designed for specific purposes.
Yeah, I remember from the textbook it mentioned Windows, macOS, X,
Yep.
Linux, iOS, and Android.
Mm-hmm.
Those are for phones and tablets, right?
That's right. And the reason for all these different types is because of something called platforms. Platforms.
So platform refers to the specific hardware that a computer uses.
Okay.
It's kind of like car brands. They all have engines and wheels and steering wheels, but they're all built differently.
Right.
So some operating systems are compatible with multiple platforms, while others are designed for specific ones.
Okay.
For example, Windows is typically found on Intel or IBM-compatible PCs, whereas macOS X is specifically designed for Apple computers.
So some operating systems are multilingual.
Exactly.
They can run on different types of hardware,
Yeah.
and some are just specialized.
Right.
Yeah. And just like learning a new language, choosing an operating system often depends on what you're comfortable with and what you need it to do.
Right. So once we've chosen an operating system, how do we actually use it?
Oh, okay.
Like, how do we tell it what we want to do?
Well, that's where the user interface comes in.
Okay.
Think of this as the dashboard of your computer.
Okay.
It's how you interact with the operating system and give it commands.
And I know I've heard of like graphical user interfaces or GUIs.
Right.
Is that what most computers use these days?
Absolutely. GUIs are designed to be user-friendly, relying on visual elements like icons and windows and menus, and you can interact with them using a mouse or a keyboard or even a touch screen if you're on a tablet or a smartphone.
Okay, phew, that's a relief.
Yeah.
I was a little worried there for a second that I was going to have to learn a whole new language
Yeah.
to be able to even use a computer.
You won't have to memorize tons of commands or anything like that.
Okay, good.
Although those command line interfaces, they were pretty powerful in their time.
Yeah, okay, so GUIs are kind of like having a visual menu at a restaurant.
Yes.
You can just point and click it what you want.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
It's all about making computers intuitive and accessible to everyone.
Cool.
Now let's talk about some specific operating systems that you'll encounter.
Okay.
Especially as a freshman,
Yeah.
We've talked about Windows and macOS X, but there's another big player in the game, Linux.
Right, Linux.
And the textbook mentioned that it's free and open source.
Yeah.
Which sounds pretty appealing, I think, for a student on a budget.
Totally.
So open source means that the core code of Linux is freely available for anyone to use, modify, and distribute.
So it's kind of like a recipe that anyone can tweak and add their own little variations to.
Exactly. And because it's open source, there are tons of different versions of Linux called distributions or distros, each with its own set of features and customizations.
So it's like choosing your favorite flavor ice cream.
Yeah.
There's something for everyone.
Exactly.
And what about those popular distros like Ubuntu and Red Hat?
Those are great examples.
Yeah.
Ubuntu is known for being very user-friendly.
Okay.
But that's a good choice for beginners. While Red Hat is more geared toward enterprise use.
Okay.
But it's a solid option for anyone who wants a really powerful and stable OS.
That's awesome. Okay. So many choices.
I know.
Speaking of choices, I'm guessing most freshmen these days are pretty familiar with iOS and Android
Oh, yeah.
for smartphones and tablets.
Absolutely.
Right.
iOS is what powers Apple's iPhones and iPads,
Right.
while Android is developed by Google and known for its flexibility and customization options.
Yeah, I'm definitely more familiar with those since I pretty much use my phone for everything.
Of course.
But what about Windows in the mobile world?
Okay.
Does it even have a presence there?
It does, actually.
Oh, my.
Microsoft has two versions, Windows RT, which is designed for tablets, and Windows Phone for smartphones.
Oh.
They haven't gained quite the same level of popularity as iOS or Android, but they're still out there.
Okay. Interesting. I've always wondered, like, how all the different parts inside a computer manage to communicate with each other.
Okay.
Like, how does the operating system talk to the printer or the graphics card?
That's a great question, and it all boils down to something called device drivers.
Device drivers.
Think of them as interpreters translating between the language of the operating system and the language of specific hardware devices.
So it's kind of like if you're traveling to a foreign country.
Yeah.
And you need a translator.
Exactly.
Who understands both languages.
Exactly. Each device needs its own specific driver to function properly.
Okay.
Without the right driver, the device is essentially useless to the operating system.
Right.
It's like trying to read a book that's written in a language you don't understand.
Yeah, you can't access that information.
Exactly.
Okay. And so just like a bad translator can lead to misunderstandings and stuff.
Right.
An outdated or faulty driver can cause problems with your hardware.
Exactly. You might experience glitches or errors or even complete device failure.
Wow.
If you're using the wrong driver.
That's why it's so important to keep your drivers up to date.
Yes, definitely.
Speaking of things that make life easier,
I
am so incredibly grateful for plug-and-play technology.
I know, me too.
I can't even imagine having to manually install drivers for every new device that I connect to my computer.
Plug and play is a lifesaver.
It really is.
It allows your operating system to automatically detect new hardware and then search for the appropriate driver.
Right.
So it makes the setup process super easy.
It seriously feels like magic.
Right.
You plug it in.
And it works.
It works.
Yeah. There's a lot of clever engineering happening behind the scenes. But yeah, for the user, it's super simple.
It is. Okay. So we've covered what operating systems are, different types, how they interact with hardware.
Right.
But what about all the stuff we store on our computers?
Oh.
Like, how do we keep track of all those files and folders?
That is where file management comes in.
Okay.
And it's all about organizing, the mountains of digital data that we accumulate on our computers, from essays to research papers to photos, music videos, all of that.
It sounds pretty crucial.
It is.
Especially for like a busy freshman like me.
Yes, especially.
I'm already starting to feel overwhelmed with all the files I'm getting for my classes.
I hear you.
So where do we even begin?
Okay.
Is there like a magic formula for keeping our digital lives organized?
There is. And the first step is understanding how your computer storage is structured.
Okay.
So think of your hard drive like a giant library filled with countless bookshelves.
Okay, I can picture that.
Good.
But hard drives can be massive.
They can be huge.
How do we break them down into manageable sections?
Okay, well, that's where the concept of volumes comes in.
Volumes.
A volume is a logical division of a hard drive.
Okay.
Represented by a letter, like C or D.
Right.
It's like dividing the library into different wings or floors, each with their own special collections.
So it's like having separate rooms for different genres of books.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, that makes sense. But before we could even start shelving those books, we need to set up the shelves themselves, right?
Yes.
Is that where formatting comes in?
Okay.
Formatting a volume is like installing those bookshelves and creating a system for organizing the books.
Right.
It establishes the file system, which is essentially the set of rules for storing and retrieving files on that particular volume.
So is that like deciding whether to organize the books by author or by title?
Exactly.
Or Dewey Decimal or?
Exactly.
Okay.
There are different file systems like NTFS, FAT32, and HFS Plus.
Wow.
Each with their own strengths and weaknesses.
Okay.
Designed for specific operating systems.
So it's like choosing the right filing system.
Yes.
For your digital paperwork.
Exactly.
Wow. Okay. And once we've formatted a volume and chosen a file system, we can start creating folders to organize our files within those volumes.
Yes, folders are the building blocks of a well-organized file system.
Okay.
They allow you to group related files together, just like you would use folders in a physical filing cabinet.
Right. I always think of like the root directory.
Mm.
Top-level folder on a volume.
Yeah, as like the main entrance to the library.
That's a great way to think about it.
It's the starting point for navigating through all those wings and shelves.
Exactly. And to find a specific book, or in this case, a specific file, we use paths.
Paths.
A path is like a set of directions.
Okay.
That tells you exactly where to find that file on your computer.
So it's like saying, go to the second floor, then turn left at the fiction section, and then look for the book with the red spine.
Exactly. A path provides a complete roadmap to a file's location, starting with the volume letter, followed by the names of all the folders to navigate through, and ending with the file name itself.
So do we have to memorize all those paths?
No.
Every time we want to find a file?
No, you don't have to be a walk-in directory tree or anything like that.
That's good news.
That's where file management tools like File Explorer and Windows come in.
Okay.
They provide a visual interface for navigating your computer's file system and accessing your files with ease.
So it's like having a digital librarian at your fingertips.
Yes, exactly.
Wow.
File Explorer allows you to see all your volumes, folders, and files in a user-friendly way. And you can perform all sorts of actions like creating new folders, renaming them, moving them, copying them, and even deleting them.
And so it's like we have complete control over our digital domain.
Yes, you do.
Okay, so now that we've covered kind of the basics, how about we dive into some of the specific things we could do with files in Windows?
Okay, let's start with the essentials, creating, renaming, and deleting files and folders.
Okay.
These are the building blocks of efficient file management.
So creating a new folder is like adding a new shelf to your library.
Yes, it's essential for keeping things organized and preventing your digital life from becoming a chaotic mess.
Yeah, and renaming files and folders is like labeling those shelves clearly.
Exactly.
So you can identify the contents and find what you need quickly. And sometimes we need to declutter our digital lives.
Yeah.
Just like we declutter our physical spaces, right?
Yes.
So that's where deleting files and folders comes in.
Exactly. Deleting files is like sending those unwanted books to the recycling bin.
Right.
It's important to be cautious, though, when you're deleting files. You don't want to accidentally get rid of something important.
Yeah, that's why it's always good to have a backup strategy in place.
Yes, definitely.
But we'll get to that later.
Okay.
For now, let's focus on moving and copying files.
All right.
Is there more to it than just dragging and dropping?
So while dragging and dropping is a convenient way to move or copy files, Windows also offers another powerful tool, the clipboard.
Okay, the clipboard.
Yes.
Remind me how that works.
Imagine the clipboard as a temporary holding area for files and other data.
Okay.
When you cut or copy a file, it's sent to the clipboard.
Okay.
And then you can paste it into a different location.
So cutting is like moving a book from one shelf to another, while copying is like making a duplicate of the book.
Exactly. The clipboard is incredibly useful for transferring files between folders programs or even different computers.
That makes sense. Okay, now what about shortcuts?
Okay.
I remember using them, but I never really quite understood what they actually were.
Okay, so shortcuts are essentially pointers to files or folders.
Okay.
They allow you to access those items from multiple locations without having to create multiple copies.
So it's like having multiple library cards.
Yes.
That all lead to the same book.
Exactly. Think of the icons on your desktop or in the Start menu.
Okay.
Many of them are actually shortcuts,
providing
quick and easy access to programs and files that are stored elsewhere on your computer.
That makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
So creating a shortcut is as simple as right-clicking on the file or folder and choosing Create Shortcut.
Exactly.
Okay, easy enough. Now let's talk about something that's near and dear to every computer user's heart. Backups.
Okay.
I know they're important, but they can be such a hassle.
I understand.
Is it really necessary to back up like everything?
I understand the sentiment, but trust me, backups are essential.
Okay.
For protecting your valuable data, think of them as insurance for your digital life.
Okay.
You never know when a hard drive might fail or a virus might strike.
Right.
Or you might accidentally delete a crucial file.
Okay, you've convinced me.
Okay.
But what's the best way to back things up?
Okay.
There seem to be so many options these days.
There are. You're right.
Yeah.
And there are several approaches you can take.
Okay.
One option is to use external storage devices.
Okay.
Like USB flash drives or external hard drives. These devices provide a portable and relatively inexpensive way to store backups.
So it's like having a separate filing cabinet.
Yeah.
For your most important digital documents.
Exactly. You can copy your crucial files to these external drives.
Okay.
And then store them in a safe place.
Gotcha.
Another option is to use cloud storage services like Microsoft OneDrive.
Cloud storage. So that's like having a backup filing cabinet in the cloud.
Exactly.
Okay.
Cloud storage services allow you to store your files on remote servers,
Right.
which are accessible from anywhere with an internet connection.
Okay.
So it provides an extra layer of protection in case something happens to your local computer.
Right. What about the different types of backups?
Okay.
The textbook mentioned something about full,
Yes.
differential, and incremental backups.
Yeah.
Could you explain those
Absolutely.
and why we might choose one over the other?
So a full backup, as the name suggests, copies all of your selected files.
Okay.
It provides the most comprehensive protection, but it can also take a long time and require a lot of storage space.
So it's like making a complete duplicate
Yes.
of your entire filing cabinet.
Exactly.
Oh.
A differential backup, on the other hand,
Yeah.
only backs up the files that have changed
Okay.
since the last full backup.
So differential backups save time and space.
Exactly.
Because they're only copying the new stuff.
Exactly.
Right.
And finally, incremental backups take things a step further by only copying the files that have changed since the last incremental backup.
Oh, wow.
They're the most efficient in terms of storage space,
Okay.
but they can be a bit more complex to restore
Okay.
if you ever need to.
That's a lot of backup options.
I know, right?
I'm starting to see why having a strategy is so important.
Yes, definitely. The key is to choose a backup method that fits your needs
Right.
and your comfort level.
Uh-huh.
And remember, any backup is better than no backup.
That's good advice.
And since we're talking to freshmen who are likely living in dorms or shared apartments,
Right.
let's talk about using a home network.
Okay.
Because home networks are becoming increasingly common these days.
Yeah.
And they offer some fantastic benefits,
Uh-huh.
especially for students who need to share files or printers or internet connections.
Right, exactly. And setting up a home network isn't as complicated as it might sound.
No, it's not.
The key ingredient is a router, which acts as the central hub
Yes.
connecting all your devices.
Think of it as the heart of your digital home, pumping data to all the connected devices.
Right. And you can connect devices to the router either with cables or wirelessly via Wi-Fi.
That's right. Most routers these days support both wired and wireless connections, giving you flexibility in how you connect your devices.
Right. You know, one thing I always struggled with was getting a strong Wi-Fi signal
Oh, yeah.
throughout my house.
I understand.
Any tips for maximizing coverage?
Yes. The location of your router is crucial.
Okay.
Try to place it in a central location away from walls and other electronic devices
Okay.
that can interfere with the signal.
So no hiding the router in the back of a closet.
Probably not the best idea.
Okay.
Walls and other obstacles can weaken the signal.
Right.
Also, you can experiment with the router's antennas to see if adjusting their position improves coverage.
That's a good tip.
Okay.
Okay, so once we have our home network up and running, how do we actually share stuff like files and printers?
Windows makes that super easy.
Okay.
You can share entire folders or specific files
Okay.
with other users on your network.
And we could do this through File Explorer.
Exactly. Just right-click on the folder or file you want to share.
Okay.
Choose Properties, and then go to the Sharing tab.
Okay, and from there we can specify who we want to share the files with
Right.
and what level of access they should have.
Exactly. You can give them read-only access, which means they can view the files but not make any changes, or read-write access, which allows them to modify the files as well.
Okay.
Yeah, and sharing printers is a similar process.
Okay.
Just go to the Devices and Printers section in the Control panel, right-click on the printer you want to share and choose Printer Properties.
Okay.
Then go to the Sharing tab and enable printer sharing.
And once a printer is shared, anyone on the network can print to it.
Exactly.
As if it were connected directly to their computer.
That's right. Home networks can be a real lifesaver, especially when you need to collaborate on projects or share resources, or just streamline your digital life.
I wish I knew all this back in my freshman year.
Me too.
It would have made things so much easier.
Yeah.
Before we let our student listeners go,
Okay.
I want to circle back to file organization.
All right.
I know we talked about the technical aspects, but what about some practical tips for actually organizing files effectively?
That's a great point. Having a clear system for organizing your files can save you countless hours of frustration later on.
It really can, and it's something that I think everyone struggles with.
It is.
Students and seasoned professionals alike.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Oh.
One of the simplest but most effective strategies is to create a folder structure
Okay.
that mirrors your real-life organization.
So if you're a student, you might have separate folders for each class.
Exactly. And then subfolders for different assignments or projects within those classes.
Makes sense.
It's all about finding a system that makes sense to you and that you can easily maintain.
And another tip is to use descriptive file names
Yes.
that clearly identify what each file contains.
Yes. No more document1 or untitled files.
Right. Get rid of those.
Yes. Taking a few extra seconds to name your files thoughtfully can make a huge difference
Right.
when you're searching for something later.
And don't forget about using tags or keywords
Oh, yeah. Good point.
to further organize your files.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of operating systems these days allow you to do that.
They do?
Add those to your files, and it makes them easier to search and filter later.
Exactly. Tags are like digital sticky notes that you can attach to your files, adding extra layers of organization.
So the key takeaway here is that there's no one-size-fits-all approach to file organization.
Right.
The best system is the one that works for you.
Exactly. Experiment with different strategies. Find what you're comfortable with and then stick to it.
And don't be afraid to adjust your system as your needs evolve.
Yes.
Right? File organization is a continuous process, not a one-time event.
Well said. I think we've covered just about everything that our student listeners need to know to get a head start in their digital literacy course.
I think so too. But before we sign off, I want to leave our listeners with a final thought-provoking question.
Okay.
Now that you've learned about different file systems and folder structures and organizational strategies, how do you think you'll organize your files for your coursework?
Yeah.
What kind of system will help you stay on top of your assignments
Right.
and keep your digital life from becoming a chaotic mess?
That's a great question to ponder.
Yeah.
There's no right or wrong answer,
Right.
but taking some time to think about it now
Huh.
can save you a lot of hassle later on.
Definitely. All right. We'll see you in our next deep dive.
See you then.
Until next time, happy diving.
You know, it's amazing when you think about it how far we've come with computers in terms of user-friendliness.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like, remember back in the day when we talked about those command line interfaces?
Oh, yeah. You mean where you had to type in like all those cryptic commands to do basic stuff?
Yeah, talk about a steep learning curve.
Right.
But even those, seemingly ancient systems were revolutionary for their time.
Right.
They paved the way for the intuitive graphical interfaces that we use today.
I guess it's all about progress, making technology more accessible and less intimidating for the average user.
Exactly. And I think one of the biggest leaps forward in that regard was the advent of plug-and-play technology.
Oh, man, plug and play is a game changer.
I know.
Remember the days of, like, wrestling with driver installations?
Oh, I shudder to think.
For every new gadget you got?
It was a nightmare.
It was awful.
Plug-and-play has just totally streamlined the whole process.
It really has.
Now you can connect a device, and the operating system just figures it out.
Yeah, it's like magic.
It is. It's like magic. You just plug it in and boom, it works.
It works.
Yeah, there's a lot of sophisticated technology happening behind the scenes to make that happen.
Yeah.
But the user experience is magical.
It is.
It really is. And that seamless integration, I think, is a testament to the power of operating systems and how they can communicate with hardware.
Right. And speaking of communication, you mentioned device drivers earlier.
Yes.
Could you break those down a little bit more?
Sure.
Explain like what they are and why they're so important.
Absolutely. So think of device drivers as specialized translators.
Okay.
That bridge the gap between the operating system's language and the language of specific hardware components.
So it's like if I'm at a restaurant in a foreign country and I need a translator to talk to the waiter.
Exactly.
Right?
Every single piece of hardware, your printer, your graphics card, even your mouse, needs a specific driver to be able to talk to the operating system effectively.
So without the right driver, a device is basically useless.
Pretty much, yeah.
To the operating system.
It's like trying to read a book that's written in a language that you don't understand.
You can't access that information.
You can't access it, exactly.
Right, okay. And just like a bad translator can lead to like confusion and frustration and stuff.
Right.
A faulty or outdated driver can cause all sorts of problems with the hardware.
You might experience glitches or slow performance or even complete device failure
Wow.
if the wrong driver is installed.
Okay.
So it's really important to keep your drivers up to date for a smooth and hassle-free computing experience.
So drivers are kind of like the unsung heroes of the computer world.
Yeah, they're working behind the scenes, making sure everything runs smoothly.
Right. Okay, so let's switch gears a little bit.
Okay.
Talk about another critical aspect of computing that I think often gets overlooked, which is file management.
File management.
Yeah. I know it doesn't sound super exciting, but I'm realizing how important it is.
It is.
I mean, what good is a computer
if
you can't find anything on it?
Exactly. File management is all about taming that digital chaos.
Right.
And creating order out of the tons of files that we accumulate on our computers.
Yeah, it's like organizing your digital life.
It is.
To make things easier for yourself.
Exactly. It can save you a ton of time and frustration.
Right. And that's super important when you're like juggling multiple classes.
Especially.
And assignments, like a lot of freshmen are.
Yes, especially as a freshman.
Yeah, where do we even begin?
Okay.
It feels like my files are multiplying like every minute.
So the first step is to understand how your computer stores information.
Okay.
So think of your hard drive like a giant warehouse filled with tons of storage units.
Okay, I can visualize that.
Okay, good.
But hard drives can be huge.
They can be massive.
How do we break them down into more manageable chunks?
Right, so that's where volumes come in.
Volumes.
A volume is basically a logical division of a hard drive. And it's represented by a letter like C colon or D colon.
Right.
It's like dividing that giant warehouse into different sections.
Okay.
Each with its own purpose and organization.
So it's like different departments within the warehouse.
Exactly.
Like, one for documents, one for photos, one for whatever.
Exactly. And just like, you wouldn't try to cram everything into one giant storage unit.
Right.
It's a good idea to divide your hard drive into multiple volumes.
Okay.
To keep things organized and manageable.
That makes sense. But before we can start like stacking boxes in those storage units, we need to set up the units themselves, right?
Yes,
Is that where formatting comes in?
You are on the right track.
Oh.
Formatting a volume is like installing the shelving and labeling systems within a storage unit.
Right.
It establishes the file system, which is basically the set of rules for organizing and accessing the files on that volume.
So it's kind of like deciding whether to arrange the boxes alphabetically or chronologically, or by category or something like that.
Exactly. There are different file systems like NTFS, FAT32, HFS+.
Wow.
Each with their own little quirks.
Oh, yeah.
And compatibility with different operating systems.
So choosing the right file system is important.
It is. It's like choosing the right storage containers for your belongings.
Okay.
Just depends on, what you're storing and how you want to access it.
Wow, that's so cool. How much thought goes into this?
I know, it's fascinating.
Yeah, and once we've formatted a volume and we've chosen a file system, then we can start creating folders to group related files together.
Absolutely. Folders are like the labeled boxes within those storage units, allowing you to categorize and compartmentalize your files so you can find them easily later.
But I was thinking of the root directory.
Yeah.
The top level folder.
Right.
That's like the main entrance to the warehouse.
That's a great analogy.
It's the starting point for navigating through all those departments and storage units.
Exactly. And then to find a specific box or a specific file, we use paths. A path is like a set of GPS coordinates.
Okay.
That tells you exactly where to find that file on your hard drive.
So it's like saying, go to section D, aisle 3, shelf 5, box number 12.
Exactly. A path gives you a complete roadmap to that file's location, starting with the volume letter, followed by the names of all the folders you have to go through, and ending with the file name itself.
Right, so it's like a digital breadcrumb trail.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, that's pretty cool. But do we have to memorize all those paths?
No.
Every time we want to find a file?
No, you don't have to be a walking, talking file directory.
That's good news.
That's where those file management tools, Windows Explorer, come in. They act as our personal digital assistants, helping us navigate the complexities of our file system.
So it's like having a virtual warehouse manager who knows where every box is.
Exactly. Windows Explorer gives you a user-friendly interface that lets you see all your volumes and folders and files. And you can create new folders, rename them, move files around, copy them, delete them, all with just a few clicks.
So it's like, we have this power to reorganize the entire warehouse with a wave of our hand.
Pretty much.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so now that we've got the basics of file organization down, let's talk about some specific actions that we can take with files in Windows.
Okay, let's start with the essentials: creating, renaming, and deleting files and folders.
Yeah,
These are like the building blocks of efficient file management.
So creating a new folder is like adding a new storage unit
Yes.
to your warehouse.
Absolutely.
Expanding your capacity. Preventing clutter.
Yes. Essential for preventing digital clutter.
Right. And renaming files and folders is like labeling those storage units clearly.
Exactly.
So you know what's inside each one.
So you can find what you need. Exactly. Think of it as like giving each box a descriptive name tag.
Okay, and just like we sometimes need to go through our closets.
Yes.
And like get rid of unwanted stuff.
Right.
We also need to declutter our digital lives.
Absolutely.
So that's where deleting files and folders comes in.
Exactly. Deleting files is like sending those unwanted boxes to the recycling center.
Right.
Freeing up space, keeping your warehouse tidy.
Right. But just like decluttering your physical stuff,
Yeah.
you got to be careful when you're deleting your digital files.
Yes, you do. You don't want to throw away something valuable.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's why having a good backup strategy is so important.
It is.
But we'll get into that in a bit.
Okay.
But for now, let's talk about moving and copying files. Is there more to it than just dragging and dropping?
So dragging and dropping is super convenient, especially within File Explorer.
Yeah, it is satisfying to just drag and drop something.
It is. But Windows also offers another powerful tool for this, and that's the clipboard.
The clipboard. Remind me how that works.
So think of the clipboard as a temporary holding area,
Okay.
like a staging area in our warehouse.
Uh-huh.
When you cut or copy a file,
Yeah.
it gets sent to the clipboard,
Okay.
and then you can paste it into a new location.
So cutting is like moving a box from one storage unit to another.
Mm-hmm.
And copying is like making a duplicate of the box.
Exactly, and putting it in a different spot.
Got it.
The clipboard is super useful for transferring files between folders programs, even different computers.
That makes sense.
Okay.
Okay, now what about shortcuts?
Okay.
They always confuse me a little bit.
Okay.
Are they like copies of the files?
Okay, so shortcuts are more like signposts
Yeah.
than copies.
Okay.
They're pointers that direct you to the actual file or folder, so you can access them from multiple locations
Okay.
without having to create duplicates.
Okay.
Think of them like shortcuts on your phone's home screen.
Right.
Like they take you directly to an app without making a separate copy of the app.
So it's like having multiple entry points to the same storage unit.
Exactly. Shortcuts give you convenient access to frequently used files and programs without cluttering up your system with copies that you don't need.
You know, it's funny how we think of computers as being super complicated.
Yeah.
But a lot of what we've been talking about today is actually really relatable
It is.
to everyday life.
It's true.
Like file management. It's pretty much the same as organizing.
Yeah.
Like your physical belongings, just in a digital space.
Right. We all know how to use folders and labels to organize our papers and photos and other important stuff.
Right.
File management is basically just applying those same principles to the digital world.
Totally. And just like a messy room can make it hard to find what you need.
It's true.
And like impact your focus.
Yeah.
A disorganized computer can totally hurt your productivity.
It can.
And just stress you out.
And increase your stress levels. Absolutely.
I've been there.
Yeah.
I remember spending hours searching for files on my computer back in high school.
It's the worst.
It was the worst.
It's a nightmare.
But the good news is it's never too late to learn and implement good file management habits.
That's right. And it's worth it.
It is.
A well-organized digital life can save you so much time and reduce stress.
Right.
And make you feel more in control of your studies and your overall digital experience.
For sure. Okay, so for our listeners who are just starting out on their digital literacy journey, let's do a quick recap of some of the key takeaways from our deep dive.
Sounds good. So first and foremost, remember that the operating system is the heart of your computer.
Right.
It manages everything from hardware communication to file storage.
Just the conductor of an orchestra.
Yes.
Right? Making sure all the different parts are working together.
It's a perfect analogy.
And just like there are different types of orchestras, there are different types of operating systems, each with their own strengths and weaknesses.
Absolutely. Windows, macOS, Linux.
Yeah.
They all have their quirks and features.
Right.
And the best choice really depends on your needs and preferences.
Right. Once you've chosen an operating system, it's super important to understand how to navigate its file system.
Yes.
And organize your files effectively.
That means creating folders, using descriptive file names, and taking advantage of tools like File Explorer.
Right. And don't forget about backups.
Backups, yes.
Kind of a solid backup strategy.
Absolutely. It can really save you if your computer crashes or gets a virus or you accidentally delete something important.
It's like an insurance policy for your digital life.
That is a great way to think about it.
Gives you that peace of mind, knowing that your data is safe.
Exactly.
So whether you use like external storage devices or a cloud storage service like OneDrive, just having a backup is key.
It is. Any backup is better than no backup.
That's good advice. I think we've covered a lot of ground today.
I think so.
From the inner workings of operating systems to the practicalities of file management and the importance of backups.
Yes. Hopefully our listeners are feeling a little bit more informed and empowered to navigate the world of digital literacy.
Absolutely. But before we go,
I
want to leave our listeners with a final thought. As you continue on with this digital world, just remember that technology is always changing.
It is constantly evolving.
Yeah. So what's cutting edge today might be old news tomorrow.
That's right. It's important to stay curious. Embrace new technologies as they emerge, and never stop learning.
Very well said. The world of digital literacy is vast.
It is.
And always expanding. There's always something new to discover.
That's right.
All right. Well, on that note,
we'll
say goodbye to our listeners for now.
Yes. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Until next time, happy diving.
Happy diving!
And remember, the best way to master technology is to just dive in, explore, and never be afraid